How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, November 21st, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Saturday, November 20th. Just to take a look at where we are in the 2021 calendar year, starting with college, the college football season is about 2 more weeks from being over, as the college basketball season is about 2 weeks into what it's got going on. The NFL season is just creeping into the second half of its season, as the NBA is about 1 month into the 2021-22 NBA season. Also, the international teams, or in terms looking what's going on internationally, clubs are getting back to their regularly scheduled programming. Starting first with college football with the rundown from Saturday, going through the top 25 teams that played yesterday, starting with the number 1 team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs, hosted the unranked Charleston Southern Buccaneers. Georgia ended up beating Charleston Southern 56-7 after they shut Charleston Southern out in the first half, 49-0, and then both teams would score a touchdown in the third quarter, and that would be all of scoring. The Georgia Bulldogs were led by their starting quarterback, Stetson Bennett. He would throw for 105 yards and 2 of the team's 4 passing touchdowns. The Bulldogs' leading rusher, Zamir White, finished with 4 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 2 receiving yards through the air, so that's 85 total yards of offense. Their second leading carrier, James Cook, finished with 6 rushes for 57 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He also had an 18-yard reception, so that would be 75 total yards of offense with that touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Brock Bowers, had 4 receptions for 36 yards as he had 2 of the team's 4 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Javon Bullard and Jamon Dumas-Johnson would finish with 6 total tackles on the day, as the team would combine for 4 sacks. And Xavier Sori Jr. would finish with the team's only interception. With this win, the first-ranked Georgia Bulldogs are 11-0. And with this loss, the unranked Charleston Southern Buccaneers are now officially 4-6. Taking a look at what's going on with the second-ranked team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide would go on to host the Arkansas Razorbacks. Alabama would end up beating Arkansas 42-35 as they ended up outscoring Arkansas 24-14 in the first half. In the second half, Arkansas outscored Alabama 21-18, but Alabama would end this one on top as the winners. Arkansas would score a touchdown late with a minute left, and they tried to get in a situation where they could win, but it was virtually out of reach at that point. On the losing end of this matchup, the 21st ranked Arkansas Razorbacks were led by their starting quarterback, KJ Jefferson. He threw for 326 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 22. That would be 348 total yards of offense for him. Arkansas's leading receiver was Treylon Burks. He had 8 receptions for 179 yards. He had 2 receiving touchdowns on the day. And then on the defensive side of the ball for Arkansas, Grant Morgan was their leading tackler as he had 11 on the day. On the winning side of this matchup, the second-ranked Crimson Tide were led by their freshman starting quarterback out of Southern California, Bryce Young. He would end up throwing for 559 yards and 5 touchdowns. And the Alabama leading rusher was Brian Robinson Jr. He would end up with 27 carries for 122 yards. He would also go on to finish with 3 receptions for 18 yards as he had 140 total yards of offense. Alabama's leading receiver was Jamison Williams. He had 8 receptions for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver was John Mechie III. He had 10 receptions for 173 yards as he had a receiving touchdown for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Henry To'o finished with the team high in tackles as he had 2 sacks on the day, 2 of the team's 3. With this win, the second-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are 10-1. They are now 6-1 in the SEC. With this loss, the 21st-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks are 7-4. They are now 3-4 in the SEC. Taking a look at the third-ranked team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks faced off against the 23rd-ranked Utah Utes, and the Utes would upset the third-ranked team in the nation, winning this one 38-7 in front of their home crowd. They shut Oregon out 28-0 in the first half and outscored Oregon 10-7 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the third-ranked Ducks were led by their starting quarterback, Anthony Brown. He threw for 231 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for an additional 8 yards, so that's 239 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Chris Hudson, had 4 receptions for 96 yards, and as their second leading receiver, Devin Williams, finished with 5 receptions, 81 yards, and the lone receiving touchdown of the day for Oregon. On the defensive side of the ball, Noah Sewell led the team in tackles. He had 10 of them, and he also finished with a sack. On the winning end of this matchup, the Utah Utes were led by their starting quarterback, Cameron Rising. He threw for 178 yards. He ran for 8 yards, and his only touchdown came on the ground. That's 186 total yards of offense to go with that touchdown. Their leading rusher, Tavion Thomas, finished with 21 carries for 94 yards as he had 3 touchdowns. Utah's leading receiver, Brant Quaith, would finish with 5 receptions for 118 yards on the day. And then Utah's leading tacklers, Vontae Davis and Cole Bishop, finished with 7 tackles on the day. Junior Tafuna finished with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. That was exactly half of Utah's 3 total sacks on the day. With this win, the 23rd ranked Utah Utes are 8-3. They are 7-1 in the Pac-12. With this loss, the third-ranked Oregon Ducks are now 9-2. They are 6-2 in the Pac-12 as things stand. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 4th-ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes hosted the 7th-ranked Michigan State Spartans in what many expected to be a very close game. The Ohio State Buckeyes would shut the door in the first half. They won this game 56-7 after they outscored Michigan State, shut them out 49-0 for the first half, and after no scoring in the third, Michigan State would get their only touchdown in the fourth. Ohio State would get their only touchdown in the second half in the fourth as well. On the losing end of this matchup, the 7th-ranked Michigan State Spartans were led by their starting quarterback, Peyton Thorne. He threw for 158 yards and a touchdown. Michigan State's leading tackler was Darius Snow. He finished with 16 tackles on the day. And Justin White would finish with the team's lone interception. On the winning end of this matchup, the 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes were led by their freshman starting quarterback, C.J. Stroud. He threw for 432 yards and 6 touchdowns. Their leading carrier was Master Teague. He had 21 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Their second leading carrier, Travion Henderson, had 9 carries for 69 yards. He also had 2 receptions for 8 yards. That would be 71 total yards of offense. Ohio State's leading receiver, Chris Olave, had 7 receptions for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Garrett Wilson, had 7 receptions for 126 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. Their third leading receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba, finished with 10 receptions as he had 105 yards and a touchdown. With this win, the 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are 10-1. They are 8-0 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the 7th-ranked Michigan State Spartans are now officially 9-2. They are 6-2 in the Big Ten. Taking a look at what's going on with the 5th-ranked team in the nation, the Cincinnati Bearcats hosted the unranked SMU Mustangs. Cincy would end up beating SMU 48-14 as they blanked them for the first 3 quarters. At the end of 3 quarters, the score was 41-0 as SMU outscored Cincy 14-7 in the 4th quarter. The 5th-ranked Bearcats were led by their starting quarterback, Desmond Ridder. He threw for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ran for 46 yards and an additional touchdown as he would go on to finish with 320 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns. Cincinnati's leading rusher was Jerome Ford. He had 20 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 2 receptions for 23 yards in the air, so that's 105 total yards of offense. Cincy's leading receiver was Trey Tucker. He had 7 receptions for 114 yards. Their second leading receiver, Tyler Scott, had 5 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown. Their third leading receiver, Alec Pierce, had 3 receptions for 39 yards as he had 2 of the team's 5 receiving touchdowns. with this, or on the defensive side of the ball, Deshaun Pace led the Bearcats in tackles as he had 7 of them. Curtis Brooks finished with 3 tackles as he had 2 of the team's 3 sacks. With this win, the 5th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats are still undefeated. They are 11-0, and they are now 7-0 in the American Conference. With this loss, the unranked SMU Mustangs are 8-3. They are now 4-3 in the American Conference at this moment. Taking a look at what's going on with the 6th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan Wolverines went to Maryland to face off with the Terps. Maryland would fall short. Michigan outscored them 24-3 in the first half, and then Michigan outscored them 35-15 in the second half. The 6th-ranked Wolverines were led by their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. He threw for 259 yards and 2 of the team's 3 passing touchdowns. Their leading rusher Hassan Haskins finished with 20 carries for 78 yards as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Michigan's leading receiver Donovan Edwards finished with 10 receptions for 170 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Josh Ross led the Wolverines in tackles as he had 8 of them. In the secondary, DJ Turner would finish with the team's lone interception to go along with his 2 tackles as his interception ended up going 42 yards for a pick 6. With this win, the 6th-ranked Michigan Wolverines are 10-1. They are 7-1 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the unranked Maryland Terrapins are 5-6. They are now 2-6 in the Big Ten as things stand. Looking at what's going on with the 8th-ranked team in the nation, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish hosted the unranked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Notre Dame would end up shutting out Georgia Tech for the game, winning this one 55-0, even though they didn't score at all in the fourth quarter. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish were led by their starting quarterback, Jack Cohn. He threw for 285 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Tyler Buchner, finished with 5 carries for 65 yards on the day. Their second leading rusher, Audric Estime, would finish with 6 carries for 61 yards. Their third leading rusher, Kyron Williams, had 11 carries for 56 yards as he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 4 receptions for 31 yards through the air. That's 92 total yards. Wrong one. He would finish with 87 total yards of offense with his 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame's leading receiver, Kevin Austin Jr., would finish with 2 receptions for 89 yards. And then Michael Mayer, their second leading receiver, had 3 receptions for 86 yards as he had a receiving touchdown for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, the Fighting Irish were led in tackles by Bo Bauer. He had 9 tackles. Howard Cross III would finish with 4 tackles as he had 2 sacks on the day. Jack Kaiser would have the team's lone interception as his lone interception would go 43 yards to the house for a Notre Dame pick 6. With this win, the 8th-ranked Fighting Irish are now 10-1. And now, of course, with this loss, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are now 3-8 and unranked. Taking a look at what's going on with the 9th-ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys shut the unranked Texas Tech Raiders out 23-0, outscoring them 13-0 in the first half and 10-0 in the second. The 9th-ranked Cowboys were led by their starting quarterback, Spencer Sanders, who threw for 239 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for an additional 48 yards and a touchdown. That, of course, would go down for 287 total yards of offense to go along with his 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Dominic Richardson, finished with 20 carries for 84 yards, and he had 20 yards through the air. That's 104 total yards of offense for him. Oklahoma State's leading receiver, Tay Martin, finished with 7 receptions for 130 yards on the day. Their leading tackler, Devin Harper, had 5 tackles as he had half of a sack. Brock Martin finished with 4 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Oklahoma would combine for 6 sacks on the day, and with this win, the 9th-ranked Cowboys are 10-1. They are 7-1 in the Big 12. With this loss, the unranked Texas Tech Red Raiders are 6-5. They are 3-5 in the Big 12. Taking a look now at what is going on with the 10th-ranked team in the nation, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons went all the way to South Carolina to face off against the unranked Clemson Tigers, and the unranked Tigers would end up beating the 10th-ranked Demon Deacons 48-27. Clemson outscored Wake Forest 17-10 in the first half, and then it subsequently outscored them 31-17 in the second half. The 10th ranked Demon Deacons were led by their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman. He threw for 312 yards on the day. He would also throw for a touchdown and an interception. In the air, the Wake Forest leading receiver was A.T. Perry. He finished with 5 receptions for 113 yards. And their second leading receiver, Jaquari Roberson, finished with 6 receptions for 93 yards. Wake Forest leading tackler was Rondell Bothroyd. He finished with 8 tackles, and he had 2 tackles for loss. In the secondary, Malik Mustafa would finish with the team's only interception. On the winning end of this matchup for the unranked Tigers, they were led by their starting quarterback, Duje Waigalele. He threw for 208 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran for 30 yards. That's 238 yards of offense for him. Clemson's leading rusher was Kobe Pace. He had 24 carries for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading carrier, Will Shipley, had 19 carries for 112 yards as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground himself, and he had an 18-yard reception, giving him 130 total yards of offense. Clemson's leading receiver was Bo Collins. He had 4 receptions for 137 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Davis Allen, had 6 receptions for 53 yards as he had a touchdown as well. Clemson's leading tacklers were Trenton Simpson and Balin Spector. They both had 9 tackles. Simpson had a tackle, and Balin Spector had half of a sack for himself. Miles Murphy had 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Andrew Booth Jr. would finish with the team's lone interception as he had a tackle. With this win, the unranked Clemson Tigers are now 8-3, and with this loss, the 10th ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are now 9-2. With this win, Clemson is 6-2 in the ACC, and with this loss, Wake Forest is now 6-1 in the ACC. Clemson giving Wake Forest their lone loss within the division. Taking a look now at what would happen with the 11th ranked football team in the nation. The Baylor Bears went to Kansas to face off against the Kansas State Wildcats. The Bears would outscore the Wildcats 20-10 as they outscored Kansas State 17-7 in the first half. Both teams scored only a field goal in the second half, but Kansas State wouldn't have enough in the tank to overcome Baylor. The Bears were led by their starting quarterback, Jerry Bohannon, who threw for 76 yards and ran for 20. He had 96 on the day. He would be taken out for Blake Shapen, as Blake Shapen would replace him for a little bit. Shapen would throw for 137 yards and run for 44. That would be a total of 181 yards of offense for Shapen. Baylor's leading rusher, Tristan Ebner, finished with 11 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And he would also finish with 7 receptions for 27 yards through the air. That would be 93 total yards of offense. Baylor's leading receiver was Tyquan Thornton. He had 5 receptions for 75 yards. And on the defensive side of the ball for the Bears, Terrell Bernard would lead the team in tackles. He had 6 of them. Gabe Hall, their second leading tackler, had 2 of the team's 3 interceptions. Al Walcott, along with having only 1 tackle for the day, had the lone interception on the day for the Baylor Bears. With this win, the 11th ranked Baylor Bears are 9-2. They are 6-2 in the Big 12. With this loss, unranked Kansas State is 7-4. They are now officially 4-4 in the Big 12. Now, taking a look at what's going on with the 12th ranked team in the nation, the Ole Miss Rebels took on the unranked Vanderbilt Commodores. Ole Miss ended up beating Vanderbilt 31-17, as Vanderbilt still has yet to get a win in the SEC. Ole Miss outscored Vanderbilt 24-9 in the first half. Vanderbilt outscored Ole Miss 8-7 in the second, but it wouldn't be close to enough to come back. The 12th ranked Rebels were led by their starting quarterback, Matt Corral. He threw for 331 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also ran for 29 yards. That's 360 total yards of offense for the Heisman candidate. Ole Miss's leading rusher, Jerrion Ely, finished with 9 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He also finished with 5 receptions for 31 yards and a touchdown through the air. That's 86 total yards of offense with his 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Jacour Pearson, finished with 4 receptions for 101 yards. Ole Miss's second leading receiver, Dontario Drummond, finished with 7 receptions, 79 yards, and a receiving touchdown on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, A.J. Finley and Chance Campbell led the Ole Miss Rebels in tackles, and DeAndre Prince would have the team's lone interception as he had 7 tackles on the day. With this win, the 12th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels are now 9-2. They are now officially 5-2 in the SEC. And with this loss, the unranked Vanderbilt Commodores are now officially 2-9. They are now 0-7 in the SEC. Taking a look at what's going on with the 13th ranked team in the nation, the Oklahoma Sooners hosted the unranked Iowa State Cyclones. Oklahoma would end up beating Iowa State 28-21 as Oklahoma scored a touchdown in every single quarter. Iowa State scored 7 in the first half and 14 in the second. That extra touchdown in the first half would be the difference. The 13th ranked Sooners were led by their starting quarterback Caleb Williams as he threw for 87 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran the ball for 67 yards and an additional touchdown as he went on to finish with 154 total yards of offense with his 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma's leading rusher was Kennedy Brooks. He had 17 carries for 115 yards and a 9-yard reception. That is 124 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma, Delaren Turner-Yell led the team in tackles as he had 11 of them. Isaiah Thomas would finish with 3 tackles for the Sooners as he had 2 of the team's 7 sacks. And then additionally, in the secondary, Pat Fields and Delaren Turner-Yell would each finish with an interception. Fields with 6 tackles, and Turner-Yell, like I said earlier, led the Oklahoma Sooners in tackles along with his interception. With this win, the 13th ranked Sooners are 10-1. They are 7-1 in the Big 12 as of right now. With this loss, the unranked Iowa State Cyclones are now 6-5 at this moment. They are now 4-4 in the Big 12. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 14th ranked team in the nation, the Byu Cougars went to Georgia Southern to face off against the Eagles. BYU ended up beating Georgia Southern 34-17 after they outscored Georgia Southern 20-17 in the first half before shutting them out 14-0 in the second half. The 14th ranked Cougars were led by their starting quarterback, Jaron Hall. He threw for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for an additional 21 yards, so that's 333 total yards of offense. BYU's leading rusher was Tyler Algier. He had 25 rushes for 136 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Add-in is through 2 receiving yards. It's 138 total yards of offense. BYU's leading receiver was Gunnar Romney. He had 5 receptions for 87 yards. Their second leading receiver was Puka Nacua, who had 5 receptions for 83 yards. He had both of the team's receiving touchdowns. BYU was led in tackles by Ben Bywater as he had 8 of them. And then Jacob Robinson had both of the team's interceptions. And of course, he would go on to finish with 4 tackles himself. With this win, the 14th ranked BYU Cougars are now 9-2. And then, of course, following this loss, the unranked Georgia Southern Eagles are now sitting at 3-8. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 15th ranked team in the nation, the Wisconsin Badgers hosted the unranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. Wisconsin ended up beating Nebraska 35-28. Both teams were tied up at 14 at the half. Wisconsin would outscore Nebraska 21-14 in the second half, the difference being an extra touchdown they scored in the third quarter compared to Nebraska. And at the end of the game with the score tied, it would be a 53-yard run from Braylon Allen to give the Badgers what they needed to keep their ranked status and get yet another win. The 15th ranked Wisconsin Badgers were led by their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He threw for 145 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher, Braylon Allen, finished with 22 carries for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns, all 3 of the team's rushing touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Jake Ferguson, had 8 receptions for 92 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Leo Chenal would lead the team in tackles as he had 11 of them. And Colton Wilder would finish with both both of the team's interceptions, as he also had 2 tackles as well. With this win, the 15th ranked Wisconsin Badgers are 8-3. They are 6-2 in the Big Ten at this very moment. With this loss, the unranked Nebraska Cornhuskers have officially won 3 games this season. Taking a look at where they are now 3-8. They are 1-7 in the Big Ten. Taking a look at what's going on with the 16th ranked team in the nation, the Texas A&M Aggies hosted the unranked Prairie View A&M Panthers. Texas A&M was able to pull off a 52-3 win, as Prairie View A&M's lone field goal will come in the third. Texas A&M shut Prairie View A&M out 38-0 in the first half before outscoring the Panthers 14-3 in the second half. The 16th ranked Aggies were led on the field by their starting quarterback, Zach Calzada. He threw for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rushers, Amari Daniels and Isaiah Spiller, both finished with 70 yards on the ground and a touchdown each. And through the air, Texas A&M's leading receiver was Moose Muhammad III. He had 5 receptions for 77 yards, and he had both of the team's receiving touchdowns. Aaron Hansford, the team's leading tackler, had 8 on the day. He also went on to recover a fumble. With this win, the 16th ranked Texas A&M Aggies are now 8-3, and with this loss, the unranked Prairie View A&M Panthers are now 7-3 on the season. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Iowa Hawkeyes hosted the unranked Illinois Fighting Illini. Iowa would end up beating Illinois 33-23. They went on to outscore Illinois 17-13 in the first half before outscoring Illinois 16-10 in the second half. The Hawkeyes were led on the field by their starting quarterback, Alex Padilla. He threw for 83 yards and ran for 2. That's 85 total yards for him. Iowa's leading rusher was Tyler Goodson. He had 27 carries for 132 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, Jack Campbell would lead the Hawkeyes in tackles, as he had 8 of them. He also went on to finish with a 32-yard pick six. The other interception for the team was attributed to Dane Belton, as he finished with a tackle for himself. With this win, the 17th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes are 9-2. They are 6-2 in the Big Ten. With this loss, unranked Illinois is 4-7. They are now 3-5 officially in the Big Ten. Taking a look at what's going on with the 18th ranked team in the nation, the Pittsburgh Panthers hosted the unranked Virginia Cavaliers. Pitt ended up beating Virginia 48-38 after Pitt outscored Virginia 24-21 in the first half. Pitt went on to outscore Virginia 24-17 in the second. The Panthers were led by their starting quarterback, Kenny Pickett. He threw for 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Vincent Davis. He had 12 carries for 100 yards on the ground. Their second leading rusher, Rodney Hammond Jr., had 15 carries for 66 yards, as he had a rushing touchdown as well. Their leading receiver, Jordan Addison, had 14 receptions for 202 yards and all 4 of Pittsburgh's receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Hill finished with 7 tackles. Deslin Alexander finished with the second most tackles on the team. He had 6 of them, and he also finished with 2 sacks. Kalijah Cansey finished with 4 tackles, as he had a sack and a half. John Morgan III would finish with 2 tackles, as he had a sack and a half as well. And Phil Campbell III, alongside his 4 tackles, would log the team's only interception. With this win, the 18th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers are 9-2. They are now 6-1 in the ACC. With this loss, the unranked Virginia Cavaliers are now 6-5. They are now officially 4-3 in the ACC. Taking a look at what's going on with the 20th ranked team in the nation, the North Carolina State Wolfpack hosted the unranked Syracuse Orange. NC State would end up beating Syracuse 41-17 after they outscored the Orange 28-7 in the first half, and then 13-10 in the second half. The 20th ranked Wolfpack, who scored 4 touchdowns in the second quarter, were led by their starting quarterback, Devin Leary. He threw for 303 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Ricky Person Jr., had 12 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. He also had one reception for 27 yards. That's 77 total yards of offense for Ricky Person Jr. to go with his touchdown. NC State's leading receiver, Thayer Thomas, had 4 receptions for 80 yards as he had one of the 2 receiving touchdowns. Drake Thomas was North Carolina State's leading tackler as he had 8 of them on the day. He would even have 2 of the team's 5 sacks, and he would even have a 38-yard pick six for an extra little cherry on top. With this win, the 20th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack are 8-3. They are 5-2 in the ACC. With this loss, the unranked Syracuse Orange are now 5-6. They are now 2-6, or they're now 2-5 in the ACC. Taking a look at what's going on with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, the UTSA Roadrunners hosted the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers. UT San Antonio would end up winning this one 34-31. They won this one by a field goal. UAB outscored UTSA 24-17 in the first half, and UTSA outscored Birmingham 17-7 in the second half. The 22nd ranked Roadrunners, they were led in their come-behind win by their starting quarterback, Frank Harris. He threw for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Sincere McCormick, had 20 carries for 65 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He had 5 receptions for 29 yards through the air. That would be 94 total yards of offense. UTSA's leading receiver was DeCorian Clark. He had 6 receptions for 104 yards. Their second leading reception, Zachary Franklin, had 6 receptions for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Rashad Wisdom finished with 10 tackles of the day for himself. Clarence Hicks had 3 of the team's tackles as he had 2 of the team's 3 sacks. And Jamal Ligon would finish with the team's lone interception as he also had 8 tackles. With this win, the UTSA Roadrunners are now 11-0. They are undefeated. They are 7-0 in Conference USA at the moment. With this loss, the unranked UAB Blazers are now 7-4. Taking a look at where they are now, they are officially 5-2 in Conference USA. Taking a look, last but not least, at what's going on with the 25th ranked team in the nation, the Mississippi State Bulldogs hosted the unranked Tennessee State Tigers. Mississippi State would end up beating Tennessee State 55-10. As Tennessee State's, all of their 10 points will come in the fourth quarter after Mississippi State will go up 49-0 in the first 3 quarters of the game. The 25th ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs were led by their starting quarterback, Will Rogers. Rogers threw for 391 yards and 5 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Dylan Johnson, had 5 carries for 56 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He also had 2 receptions for 21 yards through the air. That would be 77 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher, Joquavius Marks, had 5 carries for 43 yards as he had a touchdown on the ground. He also had 2 receptions for 15 yards in the air. That is 58 total yards of offense for him. Mississippi State's leading receiver, Mekhi Polk, had 9 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Malik Heath, had 2 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Their third leading receiver, Austin Williams, had 4 receptions for 75 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Jet Johnson would lead the team in tackles as he had 8 of them alongside Deshaun Page. Jet Johnson also went on to recover 2 fumbles as well. Nathan Pickering finished with 2 of the team's sacks as he had 3 tackles. Tyrus Wheat had 5 tackles as he also had 2 sacks for the team. They both would combine for the team's 4 sacks. With this win, the 25th ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs are 7-4. They are now, or that's where they currently stand. And of course, with this loss, the unranked Tennessee State Tigers are 5-6 on the season. And of course, that concludes everything that is going on for week 12 of the college football season. And of course, in-state rivalries will pick up on Thursday, will continue through Friday, and will be played through most of Saturday. So that's what college football is looking like. Taking a look at what college basketball is looking like at this very moment, starting off with the 5th ranked basketball team in the nation, the Villanova Wildcats, faced off against the 17th ranked Tennessee Volunteers at the Cheez-It Hall of Fame tip-off. And the 5th ranked Wildcats would end up beating the 17th ranked Volunteers 71-53. Villanova won this game by 18 after they outscored Tennessee by 20 in the first half. The 17th ranked Tennessee Volunteers were led in scoring by their starting guard Santiago Vescovi. The junior out of Uruguay will go on to finish with 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals in 27 minutes. He went on to shoot 7 for 17 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. The Villanova Wildcats were led by 3 of their players. Their starting forward, Brandon Slater out of Virginia, would finish with 14 points in 22 minutes as he shot 5 for 8 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting senior forward out of Massachusetts, Jermaine Samuels, would also finish with 14 points as he finished with 11 rebounds in that span too. He shot 6 for 10 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. And then, of course, Villanova's starting senior guard out of Pennsylvania, Colin Gillespie, would also finish with 14 points, as he also finished with 2 steals in 32 minutes. He would go on to shoot 3 for 10 from the field and 6 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the 5th-ranked Villanova Wildcats are now 3-1. With this loss, the 17th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers are now 2-1. Taking a look at what the 6th-ranked team in the nation is up to, the Purdue Boilermakers faced off against the 18th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels, of course, at the same tournament where at the Basketball Hall of Fame. The 6th-ranked Boilermakers would end up beating the 18th-ranked Tar Heels. They won this one 93-84. Purdue won this game by 9 after they outscored UNC by 6 in the first half and by 3 in the second. The 18th-ranked Tar Heels on the losing end were led in scoring by their starting forward, their sophomore out of Minnesota, Dawson Garcia. Dawson Garcia would finish with 26 points and 8 rebounds in 35 minutes as he fouled out in that span. He shot 10 for 13 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. The 6th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers were led in scoring by their starting guard out of Indiana, Sasha Stefanovic. He would go on to finish with 23 points and 8 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting sophomore guard out of South Bend, Jaden Ivey, would go on to finish with 22 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And then, of course, off the Purdue bench, their forward, Travion Williams, would go on to finish with 20 points in 13 minutes as he shot 8 for 10 from the field. With this win, the 6th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers are 4-0, and with this loss, the 18th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels are 3-1. Taking a look now at what's going on with the 8th-ranked team in the nation, the Texas Longhorns hosted the unranked San Jose State Spartans at the Abe Lemons Classic. Texas would end up beating San Jose State 79-45, winning the game by 34 after they outscored San Jose State by 30 points in the first half and by 4 in the second. The 8th-ranked Longhorns were led in scoring by their starting forward, Timmy Allen out of Arizona. Timmy Allen would go on to finish with his 17 points in 24 minutes. He shot 6 for 10 from the field. He made his only three-point attempt on the night, and he would shoot 4 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the 8th-ranked Texas Longhorns are now 3-1 on the season, and with this loss, the unranked San Jose State Spartans are 1-3 on the year. Taking a look at the 9th-ranked team in the nation, the reigning NCAA champs, Baylor Bears, hosted the unranked Stanford Cardinal. Baylor would end up beating Stanford 86-48. They won this game by 38 after they outscored Stanford by 6 in the first half and by 32 in the second. The 9th-ranked Baylor Bears were led in scoring by their starting guard, L.J. Cryer out of Katy, Texas. L.J. Cryer would go on to finish with 21 points in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field and 5 for 9 from 3. With this win, the 9th-ranked Baylor Bears are 4-0, and with this loss, the unranked Stanford Cardinal are 3-2. And then last but not least, taking a look at what's going on with the 23rd-ranked basketball team in the nation, the UConn Huskies hosted the unranked Binghamton Bearcats. UConn would end up beating Binghamton 87-63. They won this game by 24 after they outscored Binghamton by 15 in the first half and by 9 in the second. The 23rd-ranked UConn Huskies were led in scoring by their starting guard, Tyrese Martin, out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Tyrese Martin would go on to finish with 15 points and 11 rebounds in 26 minutes. He went on to shoot 5 for 10 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the 23rd ranked UConn Huskies are 4-0 on the season. And of course, that concludes what was going on with college sports yesterday. And of course, with the NFL continuing today, there wasn't much going on yesterday. But so jumping straight to the NBA, looking what was going on out there. Starting off in Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks hosted the Charlotte Hornets, and the Hawks were able to beat the Hornets 115-105. The Hawks outscored the Hornets by 12 in the first half in order to pick up this momentum and run away with it. On the losing end of this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Miles Bridges. He finished with 35 points and 10 rebounds in 38 minutes. He shot 15 for 28 from the field, and he would go on to shoot 3 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard out of Chino Hills, LaMelo Ball, would finish with 15 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes. LaMelo shot 5 for 18 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he shot a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Atlanta Hawks were led in scoring by their starting center, Clint Capella. He finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 24 minutes. He shot 10 for 11 from the field. Their elite starting point guard out of Oklahoma, Trae Young, finished with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists in 34 minutes. He shot 5 for 15 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 8-9, and with this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 10-8. Taking a quick look at what's now going on in Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hosted the Houston Rockets. The Knicks would end up beating the Rockets 106-99 after they outscored the Rockets by 8 in the fourth quarter to overcome their 1-point deficit. The Rockets on the losing end, and still looking for a win on the road, were led in scoring by their starting center, Christian Wood. He finished with 18 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 6 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. The New York Knicks were led in scoring by their shooting guard off the bench, Alec Burks. He finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals in 25 minutes. He shot 6 for 8 from the field, 6 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 9 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 21 minutes. He shot 3 for 7 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and he made one of his 2 free throw attempts on the night. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 9-7. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are 1-15, still looking for a road win. Jumping up to Indianapolis, the Pacers of Indiana hosted the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pacers would end up beating New Orleans 111-94 after they outscored the Pelicans by 13 in the first quarter and by 20 in the third. The Pelicans were led in scoring on the losing end by their starting center, Jonas Valanciunas. He finished with 19 points and 13 rebounds in 23 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field. He made his only 3-pointer of the day, and he would shoot a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Indiana Pacers, before I get to the Pacers, the Pelicans' elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram, would finish with 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists in 26 minutes. He shot 4 for 14 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. The Indiana Pacers were led in scoring by their starting power forward, former All-Star Domantas Sabonis. He finished with 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 22 minutes as he shot 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are now 7-11. With this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 3-15. Jumping to our nation's capital and looking at the Wizards hosted the Miami Heat. The Wizards would end up beating the Heat 103-100, winning this game by 3 after they outscored the Heat by 7 to pick up in the fourth quarter to pick up this win. On the losing end, the Miami Heat were led in scoring by their elite starting wing out of Marquette, Jimmy Butler. Butler finished with 29 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 38 minutes. He went on to shoot 11 for 19 from the field and 7 for 9 from the foul line. Off the bench, their guard out of Kentucky, Tyler Hero, had finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. The Heat's elite starting center, Bam Adebayo out of Kentucky, finished with 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 fouls in 29 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, finished with 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists in 36 minutes. Lowry shot 3 for 12 from the field and 1 for 7 from 3. The Wizards were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Florida, Bradley Beal. He finished with 21 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 turnovers, as he was 1 foul away from fouling out in 37 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Washington Wizards are now 11-5 on the year. With this loss, the Miami Heat are now 11-6. Jumping out to Boston, the Celtics hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Celtics were able to beat the Thunder 101-105, winning this game by 6 after they outscored the Oklahoma City Thunder by 13 in the first half. The Thunder were led in scoring by their starting small forward, Luguentz Dort. He finished with 16 points in 36 minutes as he shot 5 for 15 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and he made both of his free throw attempts on the night. The Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum. Tatum finished with 33 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 34 minutes. Tatum shot 11 for 22 from the field. He shot 6 for 12 from 3 and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting point guard out of Germany, Dennis Schroeder, would finish with 29 points and 6 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 13 for 22 from the field, and he shot 3 for 7 from 3. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 9-8, and with this loss, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 6-10. Taking a look now at what's going on in Milwaukee, the reigning NBA Finals champs hosted the Orlando Magic. The Bucks would end up beating the Magic 117-108 after they outscored Orlando by 12 in the first quarter and by 13 in the third. The Magic were led in scoring by their point guard off the bench, R.J. Hampton. Hampton finished with 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists in 28 minutes. He shot 6 for 12 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and he made both of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the defending champs were led by their elite starting power forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Antetokounmpo finished with 32 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and 5 turnovers in 30 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and he shot 15 for 23 from the foul line on the night. Their starting center out of Arkansas, Bobby Portis Jr., would finish with 24 points and 15 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 11 from the field, 6 for 7 from 3, and he made both of his free throw attempts on the night. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 9-8. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 4-13 on the year. Jumping up to Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves hosted the Memphis Grizzlies. The Timberwolves would end up beating the Grizzlies 138-95. They won this game by 43 after they went on to outscore Memphis by 29 points in the first half and then by an additional 14 in the second. The Grizzlies on the losing end were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Desmond Bane. Bane finished with 21 points and 5 rebounds in 25 minutes. He shot 6 for 13 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. The Grizzlies' elite starting point guard, John Morant, would finish with 11 points and 5 assists in 27 minutes. He shot 3 for 9 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. The Minnesota Timberwolves' leading scorer would end up being their elite starting point guard out of Ohio State, D'Angelo Russell. He finished with 28 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists in 27 minutes. He shot 9 for 15 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 6 for 9 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, former NBA first overall pick, Anthony Edwards, finished with 23 points in 26 minutes as he shot 8 for 10 from the field, 5 for 6 from 3, and he was a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And then their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns, finished with 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in 24 minutes as Towns shot 8 for 10 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are 7-9, and with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now officially 8-8. Taking a look now at what's going on with the Portland Trailblazers, they hosted the Philadelphia 76ers. The Blazers would end up beating the Sixers 118-111 after they outscored Philadelphia by 9 points in the first half to win the game by 7. The Sixers were led in scoring by their starting power forward Tobias Harris and their starting point guard Tyrese Maxey. Harris finished with 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 turnovers in 36 minutes as he shot 11 for 21 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. Tyrese Maxey finished with 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 steals in 35 minutes. He shot 9 for 17 from the field, and he went on to make all 9 of his free throw attempts on the night. The Portland Trail Blazers were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard Damien Lillard. He finished with 39 points and 7 assists alongside 3 blocks in 37 minutes. Lillard shot 10 for 21 from the field, 5 for 13 from 3, and a perfect 14 for 14 from the foul line on the night. With this win, the Portland Trail Blazers are now 9-8 as their home record is now 8-1. With this loss, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 9-8. And last but not least, taking a look at what's going on in California, the Sacramento Kings, in the capital of the state, hosted the Utah Jazz. The Jazz would end up beating the Kings 123-105. Jazz winning this game by 18 after they outscored the Kings by 14 in the final quarter. The Kings were led in scoring by their starting center, Richaun Holmes. Holmes would go on to finish with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 31 minutes as he shot 9 for 10 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. The Utah Jazz were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. He finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 11 for 22 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. Their elite starting center out of France, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 21 points and 14 rebounds in 30 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, and he shot 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 11-5 on the season, and with this loss, the Sacramento Kings are now 6-11. That is, of course, what the NBA is looking like after all of yesterday's matchups. And then, of course, just to take a look at what's going on internationally in the world of soccer, because, of course, yesterday was Saturday, so there was a lot more elite or a lot of domestic matchups within each country. Of course, starting with the countries that get a little bit of priority, starting off with the Premier League. Chelsea was able to beat Leicester City 3-0 to stay on top of the table, as its second goal will come from its elite French midfielder N'Golo Kanté. Also in the Premier League, Watford hosted Manchester United and was able to pull off a rare win, beating Man U 4-1. Liverpool hosted Arsenal at home and was able to pull off a 4-0 win, as it would get a goal from its elite wings Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, in order to pick up 4 goals and 3 points in the table. Looking at La Liga in Spain, Atletico Madrid was able to beat Osasuna 1-0 at home as their 87th minute goal came from Felipe. Barcelona hosted Espanyol, and they were able to win this matchup from yesterday as Memphis Depay's 48th minute penalty kick would be the difference. Looking out in Germany, Borussia Dortmund hosted VfB Stuttgart, and the game ended 2-1 as Marco Reus's 85th minute would be the difference between them getting no points or getting 1 point and 3 points. Taking a look at Serie A in Rome, Lazio hosted Juventus as Juventus's captain defender Leo Bonucci would score both pens that he would take in order to give Juve the 2-0 win. AC Milan went to Florence to face off against Fiorentina, and Fiorentina would end up beating AC Milan 4-3. For AC Milan, they would end up getting 2 goals from their elite striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And then looking out in France, PSG hosted Nantes and was able to pull off a 3-1 win, with their first goal coming from their elite French forward Kylian Mbappe, and their third goal coming from their goated Argentinian striker Leo Messi for his very first and so far only Ligue 1 goal of the 2021 season. With that said, that's virtually everything that I've got for you for November 20th. And of course, as we are where we are today, once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are officially done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, November 22nd for another episode of The Elite. And of course, I have a birthday profile today as well. But of course, until I get to that, I of course want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 54 minutes of this piece. I do hope all is well. I want to thank the FIFA, NCAA, NFL, and NBA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed in order to do this episode. And of course, with that said, I will catch you all tomorrow with another episode of my piece. Thanks for listening. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with more tomorrow.